I think the worst part about getting fired is the obvious. The worst part is going to be having no job and no income, especially if you only relied on one source of income. You didn't have any additional streams of income or passive income or anything like that. Or if you had no fallback, no savings, no safety net, no reserve, no emergency fund, which should theoretically be enough to cover you for at least 3 to 6 months without a job, which is only getting harder with inflation and higher prices. But the worst part is probably having to break the news that you've been fired. And this could be to your family, your spouse, your husband, your wife, your kids, your coworkers. Some instances, people, they work together, but they don't work closely together or in the same building or even in the same state. And then, they don't know. Granted, some companies do send out inter-office memorandums to alert and announce the departure, the separation, the termination. But also your friends, too. And that's essentially what happened yesterday. Fired yesterday. And Michelle and I, we sat down and we talked about it in great detail. Now, we were actually only supposed to talk about it for like a few minutes, and it ended up going far longer than that talk. And we essentially broke down the entire situation and explained it from our point of view. And it was interesting because in doing this, we heard we got the perspective as well as from other YouTube creators. In particular, Abba in Preach. Go ahead and just drop a 1. Just comment number 1 if you've ever heard of or ever seen or ever watched Abba in Preach. And they reacted to or shared the news of being fired from your job essentially being YouTube, as it related to Fresh and Fit Miami being demonetized and losing their YouTube partner program ad revenue privileges, ad revenue, super chat, super thanks, memberships, any and every form of revenue possible from the YouTube partner program they no longer have that access. They have essentially been fired. The fortunate side of it was they were allowed to keep their channel, but the channel will no longer produce any form of income from YouTube, Google, Alphabet at all. And that doesn't mean that the channel will not be profitable or a useful tool in creating income. As I've told you guys before, YouTube channels can make money from day one. They don't need monetization from the typical definition and form of the word in the form of ads. They don't need that. It's helpful, it's beneficial, it's useful, but there are other ways there's more than one way to skin this cat, basically. And they are going to have to go back to that and be very, very creative. But I would say that the benefit to them is that inversely, starting from scratch, you have 0 viewers and 0 subscribers and 0 history. And they have hundreds of thousands of subscribers and plenty of views and plenty of history. So they have a much taller podium to stand on or louder speaker to share this information from. However, why they essentially got fired is the big talking point of the conversation. And within this reaction and video, they basically stated that, or at least Abba and Preach viewed it as they are entitled to be paid by YouTube. But that would literally be like saying you're entitled to be paid by any job, especially if the job is decided that you are no longer a good fit for the company, for the employer, and they terminate your employment. So basically what it boils down to is YouTube has a almost never-ending list of community guidelines and rules that are constantly being reviewed, amended, updated, and added to for the sole purpose of creating a safe environment for viewers of all ages, of all demographics, of all religions, of all preferences, of all pronouns, or whatever. YouTube's goal is to try to be that moderator to make sure that everyone feels welcome. And if your content does not make everyone feel welcome, then one of two things will happen, and then maybe both. The first one being, YouTube is not going to partner with you and the content that you create. And that's what happened to Fresh and Fit. The other alternative would be they're not going to partner with you, and they're not going to allow you to utilize their platform to potentially harm viewers. And this also ties into the primary source of revenue from YouTube, for YouTube really, which would be the advertisers. And when the advertisers don't like the content, it's not a profitable, lucrative situation for YouTube. So YouTube really has nothing to lose. And then they fire you. And additionally, for YouTube to continue to promote your content and essentially pay you to further develop an unhealthy and dangerous environment, they are essentially an accessory and aiding and enabling this terrible behavior, which they don't want. And you get fired. So yesterday we put up a video, and it was about being fired. And it was on a Friday. Yeah, so today's Saturday. We put the video up. It was on a Friday. This actually happened like a week ago, and I just came across it. I've been busy with some other things, but I just came across this, and it's sad. It's unfortunate. It really is to see that happen, because YouTube can be such a great thing, especially the revenue and the money that you can make from it. But the moment that it's taken away from you, it hurts, especially when you're at their level. And I can only imagine the type of income that they produced, and how they were viewed by their peers, which wasn't always good. I mean, they even referenced at one point that the facility or the owner or the landlord for which they record their content in the studio no longer wants them there. Not because they're not making money anymore, but probably more so because of the type of content, the type of people that they were attracting, the type of content they were creating, and the type of people they were attracting, and the relatively dangerous situation they were putting everyone else in who was in the area, which to me is a clear telltale sign that the content that you're making is probably not very helpful or beneficial to the general public, and is potentially harmful and dangerous to if it ends up in the wrong hands or viewed by the wrong people. And YouTube's very particular about that, because what happens is, it's happened in the past and it'll continue to happen in the future, is when there's a major problem, huge problem, big event, folks, lawyers, attorneys, prosecutors, they all want to rope in as many people as possible, especially those who have the most money, the most to lose. Therefore, when there's a problem and there's a possible way to link and tie and connect YouTube, Google, Alphabet to the problem, the value of the case, of the lawsuit, of the charges becomes infinitely greater. So YouTube is going to continuously work to separate themselves and distance themselves from that liability, that risk. And that's what they did. That's what they did, and that's what they're going to continue to do. But it's also an interesting situation to be in, because there's a scale. There's like a spectrum, basically. And on one end, you have safe and healthy, helpful, informative, and educational content that is acceptable and suitable for anyone, everyone, all ages, yada, yada, yada. And on the other end, you have this extremely dangerous and volatile near edge experience that pushes the envelope, potentially does some things that shouldn't be done, says some things that shouldn't be said, and is very risky if consumed and watched and viewed and shared by the wrong people. The former typically underperforms, typically doesn't make very much money, typically doesn't get a lot of subscribers, a lot of views, none of that, never goes viral. The latter, that's where the big money comes in. That's where the millions are made. But that's also where creators go to die. That's where channels get demonetized and terminated and deleted from the platform. You know, receiving strikes on their channels and actions being taken, some of which actually going legal beyond just the termination of a channel and losing monetization. So, especially if you try to portray or represent YouTube and illegally, basically, that's when things can get really hairy. So now, what do? Well, they're going to try to make a push on other platforms. TikTok, Facebook, Instagram's kind of the same thing. Twitter maybe, and Rumble. But odds are they'll never be able to produce the same amount of revenue that they lost through YouTube anywhere else, nor collectively. Because YouTube is a horse. It's a powerhouse. It's a beast, okay? You can literally jump on YouTube and produce thousands of dollars a day. Tens of thousands of dollars a day. Unbelievably insane amounts of income and revenue from YouTube, which is why it is such a exciting platform to be on, and why I continuously talk about YouTube, continuously learn about YouTube, continuously create for YouTube. And it's not about Rumble. It's not about TikTok. Although TikTok is kind of trying to step their game up And TikTok's actually got these commercials now where they're talking about how they're very beneficial for people's businesses and for helping disabled veterans and different things like that. And I may actually begin to dip my toe into the water on TikTok. But for a specific type of content aimed and geared at a specific type of audience for a specific type of conversation, which I've realized that on YouTube, maybe the better part about TikTok is that the way that the content is presented is more it's more inviting and inducive of producing satisfaction from the viewer. YouTube, on the other hand, Rumble too, you create a title and a thumbnail. Before or after you make your content, it doesn't really matter. But that title and thumbnail is how many people view the content without consuming the content. And if your title and thumbnail triggers a response from the viewer unknowingly, unintentionally, that's a problem. And I've seen it happen time and time again. And what it comes down to is impatience, laziness, and intelligence, or lack thereof. I'll leave it at that. However, on TikTok, yeah, you choose a thumbnail photo and you choose a description, caption, and some hashtags, but when the content's delivered to you, you rarely ever see that metadata. You rarely ever see that. Therefore, there's no preconceived notion before watching the video, before watching the short, before watching the reel, before watching the clip, that completely changes the opinion, the attitude, and the mood of the audience, starting off on a much better foot. You've created a much better first impression, which is why I'm kind of interested in giving it a shot, connecting with a new audience, and also learning a new algorithm, because TikTok is going to be completely different than YouTube. But having this knowledge and gaining these skills and this experience under my belt is only going to make me better, only going to make me more money, only going to create more and bigger and better business opportunities. So, yeah, it sucks getting fired, losing your job. Even more when it's YouTube, to me, because of how I'm connected to YouTube and how passionate I am about it. And for a channel that has made probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars, has employees working for the channel to create the content that they produced, in light of some saying that YouTube's not a real job. And I have to disagree, because I have to agree and disagree, actually. I have to disagree because it pays, and it's effort. It takes effort. It's work. And that's a job. Okay? That's a job. However, to get started, you don't get paid immediately. Often, you don't get paid immediately, and there's no guarantee you ever will. So I don't know how many jobs out there exist that you don't get paid at all. Granted, there are full commission jobs, but even those receive some form of base salary or compensation that maybe you have to reimburse after you start getting your commission. But there aren't many jobs out there, if any, that don't pay you. And you literally have to show up, sign up, put the work in, the effort in, and you have no timeline or expectation or guarantee that you'll ever actually be compensated. And I've seen it. I've seen it, and it's unfortunate because I actually there was a creator that I was working with to help. I've seen this happen numerous times. Unfortunately, it's sad to say, but we've worked to get channels built and monetized, and typically within 3 to 6 months, they're monetized. And you put in 3 to 6 months of work, effort, now you gotten the ability to receive a return on your investment, compensation for your videos, your uploads, your content. And then shortly thereafter, maybe 1 to 2 months, they quit. They give up. It's not the easiest thing to do, staying consistent, being on the platform, especially if you start consuming some of the negative aspects that come along with it. Some of which being reading the comments. Now, a lot of you guys are very great, and positive, and appreciative, and uplifting, but some of y'all suck. Some of y'all, like, you're like devoted to making creators feel terrible about what they do when they honestly don't deserve it at all. It'd be like you see a performer on a street corner, talented and skilled, got a tip jar out or whatever, and you walk up to him and you say, yeah, you're not very good. You're not very good at playing the violin. You're not very good at playing the piano. You're not very good at dancing. You're not very good at drawing. And you're not a very good artist. It's like, why would you do that to somebody? They're not bothering you. It's the world we live in. But once you get to that point of monetization, then like it changes you a little bit, and virality changes you. And unfortunately, I've seen so many different variations and versions of this story and how it plays out. And one of them was we actually got one channel going based on virality. Started posting videos and immediately 10,000 views a video, 30,000 views a video, 50,000 views a video. They got monetized very quickly. And then the algorithms and the viewer, the audience, and the interest and the trends, they all changed a little bit. And unfortunately, they thought that the virality that they started off with was normal. So when they started getting 5,000 views or less of video, mentally, it destroyed them. And they thought that they had done something wrong. And they quit. It's crazy. But it's a mental game. And I'm literally sitting here talking to you, obviously, but I'm not. I'm sitting here talking to my phone by myself. And that's in its own right a challenge to be able to have a conversation without anyone present. But there's other ways of creating content. I would much rather prefer to create like films and movies and really, extravagant productions and lots of editing and this, that, and the other. But maybe that's what I'll end up putting on TikTok. Maybe I'll switch it up for TikTok and see if that audience is interested in those types of long form, short form content. Maybe. I think TikTok's up to like 10 minutes now. And so it used to be like 60 seconds or less. I think it's up to like 10 minutes. So I had to reframe how I look at the world and create it in a portrait format. But that might be interesting. That might be fun. But yeah, the situation of being fired, and particularly Fresh and Fit, as it relates to YouTube or any company or employer, it boils down to representation. And you could be a fantastic employee. You can be very profitable and beneficial to a business's bottom line and revenue. However, if you misrepresent or make the business and company look bad, you don't align with their mission statement, any or all of these ultimately will sever the connection in your employment, and they will take that L. They'll take that loss out of ethics and or risk management and say, yeah, we'll lose it here temporarily. We'll make it up somewhere else in no time, but we're also going to distance and separate ourselves from a potential live wire and catastrophic implosion or fallout or bad press and bad media or anything that could potentially harm and destroy the brand, and that brand being YouTube. And YouTube having a mission and an objective of moving forward on how they want to build out this ecosystem and the type of audience and partners they want to attract and connect with and align with. Because again, if you're earning revenue from YouTube, you are considered to be included in the YouTube partner program. Partners work together, okay? Obviously within the confines and, of the guidelines that do have gray area up for interpretation. But at the end of the day, YouTube has a goal and a mission, and it's a big picture, big game plan situation. And if you don't understand or realize that, then it may not work out for you. Quite like it hasn't worked out for Fresh and Fit, unfortunately. Maybe we'll see them in another format, another way, another life. Who knows? But I think it was tough for them to produce the video to let their audience know that they've been fired by YouTube. They're no longer getting paid. Please join us and follow us elsewhere. But also realizing that they're doing the same work that they used to do that would pay them tremendous amounts of money isn't. It just isn't. Knowing that other channels, their peers, competitors, or if you want to view it as competitors, I don't really look at YouTube as a competitive platform. You have to compete with the viewers and the algorithm, which the algorithm is the audience. The algorithm is people, but I don't really see it as competing against channels. I would rather work with channels than work against channels, in my opinion. But knowing that they're out there watching you tell your story of ultimately failure, that's gotta be tough and challenging. But they have to do it because they can't just disappear. They can't just go dark. They have to try to mitigate and de-escalate the situation, put a band-aid on it temporarily, and try to migrate and shift their viewers over to another platform that is not even 1/10 the possible or capable of producing the same revenue as YouTube. Getting fired isn't great, but I think getting fired in a somewhat public arena where all eyes are on you and having to address this, that's the worst part. I think that's the worst part. But either way, Michelle and I are going to continue to create on multiple channels. We're actually working on coming up on our 5th active monetized channel. And that would be 5 channels in 2 years that we have gotten monetized for ourselves, not including others and friends. And this doesn't include about 3 or 4 other channels that were monetized years ago that we don't even use anymore. And as I said, YouTube is a business. And sometimes businesses have to make changes or close down and open up new ones or whatever it may be to stay, within the realm of a viable, profitable option based on consumers, market trends, the economy, various other factors. It is what it is. Hey guys, I appreciate you watching. If you made it this far, please smash that like button. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Share this video with literally everybody you know. It's free to do that. And until next time, you guys take care. Have an amazing, wonderful, and fantastic day.